Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 28th of September, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So you may be wondering why I have a random transaction hash from Optimism Scan up here on my screen today. Well, unfortunately it is not random and it is not good news. So for the first time ever that I've been in crypto, I was the victim of a phishing contract or a phishing attack that happened. Now this was not a targeted attack to me, this was just a general kind of like phishing contract that I unfortunately fell for, but the sequence of events that happened leading up to this and why I fell for it is pretty funny. And not funny in the haha way, but funny in the you're an idiot Anthony way, right? But I figured I'd talk about this today because the reason I fell for this, I think, is because I have lulled myself into a false sense of security for quite a while now. As I said, this is the first time that I have been a victim of a phishing contract here. And these things happen all the time in crypto, and I've managed to avoid all of that. I've managed to avoid pretty much every bad thing in crypto. I wasn't invested in Terra, I wasn't on FTX, I wasn't in BlockFi or anything like that. I managed to avoid all of these things. So of course, naturally over time, it happening over years, I lull myself into this false sense of security where I start to think that, nothing bad's ever going to happen to me, right? And it kind of was funny to me because I thought back to like when I was younger, like in my teenage years, and this is like a common thing where you see teenagers and they act like they're invincible, right? Because you're so young, you're so spry, you're jumping everywhere, you're doing things, you can recover from everything really, really quickly. But then as you get older, you realize that, okay, no, I'm not invincible, right? And that starts to dawn on you the older you get. And obviously the more health complications that you eventually have. So I think the same is true with like your crypto hygiene or your kind of a crypto security hygiene, where if you haven't actually experienced something bad for a while, you kind of forget that it can still happen to you, right? Or you kind of lull yourself into this false sense of security. So that was my main takeaway from this. But I want to tell you guys the story because I thought it was hilarious from a you're an idiot Anthony way. But so what's the damage? I don't think I mentioned this yet. The damage was all of my OP tokens that I had on Sassel.eth, and that amounted to around $50,000 US. So obviously not a small loss here. This is a pretty substantial loss for me personally. It's not going to kill me or anything like that. It's not going to break me. It's not going to send me bankrupt, but it is still a pretty substantial loss for me, especially because I had planned to hold those OP tokens. That was the whole reason they were on Sassel.eth, was because it was the airdrop that I got, the original airdrop of 33,000 OP tokens, and then subsequent airdrops after that for a total of almost 41,000 OP tokens. I had planned to hold those for quite a while because I'm very bullish on the Optimism ecosystem. I'm also, I should disclose, an investor in Optimism itself. So I do have OP tokens still vesting out as part of my investor allocation, but all of my airdrop tokens are gone now. They went to some phishing guy, someone running a phishing kind of scam here, and then they traded those OP tokens for ETH. But how did I fall for this? You may be wondering, since I've got such good security posture and I haven't felt such good wallet hygiene as well, and I haven't fallen for things in the past, you may be wondering, how does someone so experienced in this ecosystem fall for this? Well, I'll run you through it. As I said, it's a stupid story, and thinking back on it, I feel really dumb. But and some people may feel embarrassed if they did this, but I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I don't care if it's embarrassing. I feel like I need to tell people this story to help them avoid this, because you guys know that this happens all the time. People fall for this all the time. I'm sure some of you may have fallen for this before as well. But just to give you a sense of how easy it is to actually fall for something like this, even if you have other types of protections in place. So let me run you through the story. So what happened was I went on Twitter. I saw Dan Romero, the founder of Farcaster, share a tweet saying something about Farcaster keys or something, and I, not really thinking about it, was like, oh, okay, this looks legit. Dan tweeted about it. And for some reason, I just didn't think. I didn't think, oh, maybe Dan is hacked, or maybe this, this doesn't seem right. It seems sus, because I usually do that, right? I usually run through that process mentally. But for some reason, I just didn't do that. So I clicked through. And then, of course, there was some kind of transactions that needed to be signed and confirmed through MetaMask that popped up and everything. It first asked me to change my network to Optimism, which I did because I was like, well, Farcaster is using Optimism, so that's not fishy to me. That didn't raise any red flags with me. And the website itself was kind of not great, honestly, and that should have flagged me straight away, but for some reason it didn't. Again, this is what I'm saying before, where I'm like, this is such a stupid way for me to lose money, because all of these things that have happened so far, and I'm not even halfway through the story yet, should have raised red flags galore for me, but they didn't this time. I don't know why, to be honest. Maybe I'll talk a little bit at the end about why I think, but I don't know for sure. But anyway, I went through the motions there, and then this is where it gets really dumb. And this is where I am personally embarrassed in myself or disappointed in myself for doing this. I literally looked at the MetaMask prompts and I just clicked confirm. I didn't look at what it was doing. I didn't pay attention to any security warnings. I literally clicked confirm, and then I confirmed it on my on a hardware wallet as well. And away you go. I didn't pay attention to anything. And the reason I think that I wasn't paying attention to anything here is because I was trying to multitask. I was actually, funny enough, getting the Daily Gwei video and podcast ready to go out, because this happened, what was the time? I think it was like 11 something p.m. my time, when I was usually kind of editing it and putting it out there and doing everything. So I was distracted, obviously. I wasn't paying attention. So me being like in that state of mind, I was like, you know what, whatever, blah, 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 fine. And then I went through those motions, and then I went through the motion of switching back to the Ethereum mainnet, because it asked me to switch back to Ethereum mainnet. And that's the first red flag that I actually caught on to. I'm like, okay, why is it telling me now to switch back to the Ethereum mainnet? So I switched back, and then it came out with a pop-up to send all of my ETH to a random address. That's what stopped me, right? I would have lost my ETH, which is about 6 ETH on Sassel.eth on mainnet, if I didn't kind of stop there. I would have lost that ETH as well. And then obviously my heart sank, where I was like, holy shit, what did I just confirm? I obviously haven't confirmed this ETH transfer, but what did I confirm before it? Because as I said, I wasn't paying attention. I had no idea what I had just done. And I went to Optimism Scan, and I looked at my Sassel.eth on their address, and I saw an outgoing transaction of OP tokens. And immediately I knew what that meant, right? I was like, holy shit, I just got phished. And I sat there for like 5 minutes, just going through the transactions, looking at them all, looking at what happened, kind of in disbelief for like a minute or two, being like, maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe I can get these funds back. Maybe I didn't actually get phished here. But then obviously the reality sets in, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I got phished. And then that was basically it from there. And then I revoked the approval that I gave, because this is a token approval phish, the classic thing where you approve a contract to spend your tokens. And I did that obviously for my OP tokens, and then they just took the OP tokens probably with some bot in the background, whatever. It happened, it's gone now. I'm never getting this money back, so I'm obviously not expecting to get a cent back from this. They have already traded the OP tokens for ETH as well. I was looking at it, I guess like late last night. But just I guess like taking a high level view here of the story I just told, I didn't do anything like, wrong per se. What I did was that I just wasn't paying attention, right? As I said, there are all these red flags that kind of popped up, and that should have been, something that stopped me. But because I wasn't paying attention, I still fell for it. And this is the point I want to get through to you guys, is that no matter how good you think your security posture is, no matter how good you think you've protected yourself by segmenting wallets, stuff like that, no matter how good you think you are, and how good you think you are at spotting scams and phishers and kind of like and not falling for these sorts of stuff, like I did, right? Eventually, there's a high chance that you're probably going to get caught by one of these things. And that's because we can never remove or totally remove the human element from this. And this was literally a human element error for me, because, as I said, I was not paying attention. That's all it took. It just took me not paying attention and not actually realizing those red flags that I otherwise would have clued into. Honestly, if I was paying attention, I would have clued into it from when I saw Dan Romero's tweet about this. Like, that's what I usually do. I see that, I'm like, I don't trust something asking me to sign something. But through the whole process, it was literally a couple minutes. It didn't even take very long for me to do this. Through that whole process, because I was paying attention to something else, and because I was just like, oh yeah, whatever, blah, blah, I'll just confirm this transaction, it did not occur to me until eventually I was paying more attention for that ETH transfer that I didn't make, where I was like, oh shit, like this, I just got phished. And of course I saw this and I'm like, okay, well, goodbye OP tokens. It was nice knowing you. What makes this a little bit better for me personally, I guess, or makes it not like as big of a loss as well, is one, these OP tokens were all given to me for free, obviously through airdrops. So I didn't, like, it's kind of funny to say this, but I didn't technically lose any money, right? It was more that I had something that was given to me for free, and then I lost it. I didn't even do any work for this OP, right? It was part of the first airdrop. The majority of it was part of the first airdrop, which everyone, or a lot of people got. I didn't even really do much work for this. So that kind of lessened the blow as well, where I was just like, yeah, whatever, okay. And then I can also write it off on tax as a loss, which kind of helps a bit and lowers my tax bill a bit. But I guess, like, regardless of those kind of consolidation prizes, right, that I'm giving myself, the fact of the matter is that if I had more funds on Sassel.eth, on Optimism here, if I had more OP on there, I would have lost it all, right? I probably would have signed these transactions and signed anything because I just wasn't paying attention. So that's what I want to get through to you guys about this, is that the human element is so important to this sorts of stuff. And when you actually, even though you're aware of it, and even though you think you may be conscious of it, all it takes is a couple minutes of slipping up for this to happen. Now, okay, well, how do you protect yourself from this? Well, as I said, I practice good wallet hygiene, and because of that, the only funds that I had on Sassel.eth were this OP and some ETH that I've got on there, like 6 ETH that I've got on there. Honestly, that's probably too much ETH on that address, and I should move that somewhere else, because the thing is, Sassel.eth is more like a hot address for me, where I use it quite regularly to do different things on chain. But then I have my other addresses, like where I stake my ETH from, which is also segmented, by the way. I don't have everything on one address, but those addresses, they're like my proper cold storage addresses, where I really don't interact with them very, very often. And when I do, I make sure that I'm paying attention. I absolutely make sure that I'm not doing anything else. That, when I start interacting with it, I'm like, okay, you're paying full attention to this, nothing else, and I quadruple check everything. So I'm very vigilant about it. But as I said, the point is, I think, don't keep substantial amount of funds on an address that you use regularly. I made the error here of keeping my OP there, and honestly, the reason why I kept my OP there was a bit of laziness, and also a bit of, I didn't want people thinking that I was selling that OP or something like that. Right? Because it's on my public address. But it was mostly laziness, to be honest, where it was like, okay, it's on there, whatever. I could have transferred it somewhere else, and then because I was delegating my OP to Polynia as well in the governance kind of ecosystem, but I could have transferred it, but it was just laziness for me, and that's a lesson for me as well. Stop being so lazy about these things. And really, it's the only thing I've been lazy about. As I said, I practice good wallet hygiene in every other way, and I'm pretty strict about it, but yeah, as I said, and I'm not going to go on too much about this because I noticed that I'm already 12 minutes into this. But as I said, doesn't matter how good you think your security posture is, there's always holes. All we can do is make sure that those holes are as small as possible and as infrequent as possible. And my main takeaway from this is, guys, you just, even if, whenever you're interacting with something with a substantial amount of funds, interacting with something with a wallet that has a substantial amount of funds in it, make sure that your attention is 100% on that and nothing else. Because all it takes is you to sign one thing and it's gone. That's all I did here. I signed one thing with these OP tokens. I did a token approval, and then they're gone. And that's it. I'm never getting them back. Unless the hacker feels generous and wants to give the funds back to me, I'm never getting these back. I've made peace with that. That's the reality of this stuff. But yeah, that's the tale of how I lost $50,000 worth of OP tokens in possibly the stupidest way possible that I could have lost it, considering the fact that, I have dodged all these bullets over the years, but someone finally got me. So to whoever you are out there that ran this, maybe you listened to the refuel. I doubt it, but if you do, congrats on that, I guess. And I hope you enjoy your ill-gotten gains there. But anyway, I mean, I don't hope you enjoy it, but anyway, I'm going to leave that one at that. There's plenty of positive news to get through from today that I wanted to get through, and it feels like this episode is going to go longer than 30 minutes, so you guys are in for a treat. But let's move on to the positive news. All right, so we have an update around the launch of Ethereum Futures ETFs. So as I've said to you guys, the ETF heads that I follow on Twitter are pretty adamant or pretty confident that these ETFs, these futures ETFs, have a very high chance of being approved in October. Now, there was an update today that apparently the SEC wants to accelerate the launch of these futures ETFs because they want them off their plate before the pending government shutdown in the US, which I believe is, October 1st or something like that? I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but apparently the filers need to update their documents by Friday PM, so this is no small task because there's only 48 hours to go, but so they can get the ETF on Monday and trade it Tuesday. So yeah, I think we could have ETH futures ETFs as soon as Monday or Tuesday here, which is pretty cool. Obviously not as cool as spot ETFs, but still it's something, right? And I think the Bitcoin spot ETFs as well, as I mentioned yesterday, they've been delayed because of the government shutdown stuff too, but I still expect those to get approved probably next year. I've been saying that I actually would prefer them to get approved next year, Q1, rather than this year, because it just maps with the timing so much better. ETF approval, then Bitcoin halvening, and market just heating up generally. I think the timing just is chef's kiss, right? I would rather that personally. And for ETH spot ETFs, I wouldn't hold my breath for next year, to be honest. Maybe 2025. It's funny because And this is another thing when it comes to politics, right? Where it's like, what if the Republicans win the presidency next year? They remove Gensler and install one of their own people there that is friendlier to crypto, that will just straight away approve an ETH ETF. So we could get it in 2025 just because of that. With Gensler at the helm, it's not likely, I don't think, unless there's some substantial shift here. But we'll have to see. But anyway, that's a perfect segue into the next bit, which is Gensler was in front of the House Financial Services Committee. I spoke about this yesterday. And he was grilled on crypto pretty hard, as he usually is here. Now, I took this screenshot of the hearing, and you can see behind him the Stand With Crypto logo on the phone on the right-hand side, the shield logo, and then the writing on the left-hand side. Now, for those of you who don't know, Stand With Crypto is a grassroots advocacy hub that was created by Coinbase in order to grow and foster crypto advocacy or political advocacy in the US here. So it was pretty cool to see that that was there. It reminded me of that kind of sign that someone held up that one time with Janet Yellen in the foreground where it said buy Bitcoin, right? It reminded me of that. So it was cool to see that. But the reason why these people showed this is because there were a bunch of crypto people that were actually present at this committee hearing and met with politicians. So Kevin Owocki here from Gitcoin put out a tweet summarizing exactly what happened, who was there, what they talked about. But he basically said, he was one of 40 founders invited by Coinbase and the Stand With Crypto initiative in Washington, D.C. He said, it was my first time being in D.C. and I identify as a software engineer, not an experienced political hand. So take his notes with a grain of salt, but here are his notes. So basically, it's a pretty long tweet, so I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But a lot of positive stuff out of this tweet, to be honest. I think that one of the funniest things that I read here is that Kevin says, the White House doesn't like crypto, but no one seems to really know why. And I think that's pretty, I guess, like obvious to people paying attention, where it seems that there is this war on crypto, but no one really knows why they're fighting against crypto. And I feel like they're doing it at the behest of someone who just has an agenda against crypto, whether it's someone like Elizabeth Warren or other politicians out there. So that's actually pretty positive, because if they don't know why they like crypto, it means that they could pretty easily be influenced to actually like crypto, because they don't have a reason to dislike it. They just dislike it because that's the status quo right now, right? And in saying that, most politicians, from what I've seen on both sides, aren't actually against crypto at all. And there are a lot of them that are actually very pro-crypto and very for crypto. And one of those is Richie Torres here, who's a Democrat. He's a pretty young Democrat, which is pretty cool to see. But he's another person that's been grilling Gary Gensler and the SEC about their absolutely abhorrent approach to regulating the crypto industry and how they're doing this kind of regulation by enforcement. And this is a video clip here that he shared where he cross-examined Gary Gensler. And I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to check out below. But towards the end of the clip, he asked Gensler, are Pokemon card transactions, like if you buy a Pokemon card, you buy a packet of Pokemon cards, is that a securities transaction? And Gensler, of course, fumbles around, misdirects, doesn't really answer the question. And then Richie asks him, okay, well, if you're not going to answer that, answer me this. Is tokenizing a Pokemon card, does that make it a security, right? Does that make the Pokemon card a security now? And of course, Gensler was like dodging the question really and saying it needs more context, blah, blah, blah. But it seems through not just Rich's questions, but other representatives' questions to Gensler, is that he doesn't have any real answers to this, because his whole agenda is regulation by enforcement. His whole agenda is that he knows that the law is not on his side, because he's lost the SEC has lost 3 court cases now against crypto, right? He knows that the law is not on his side. He knows that the regulations are not on his side. So what he's doing is he's just trying to regulate via enforcement, where he brings his enforcement actions against all these different people and companies within the crypto ecosystem, and hopes that a lot of them settle, which a lot of them do, to be fair, because it's quite costly to fight the SEC in court. But the ones that do fight end up winning. Grayscale recently with their case, Ripple, obviously, and there was one other one, I believe, as well. It was a DeFi-related one, I think got to do with Uniswap. And there's active cases like Coinbase versus the SEC, which I'm pretty much almost 100% convinced that Coinbase is going to win that. I really don't think the SEC is going to win there. Their case against Binance as well. Binance probably going to win that as well. But Binance has other issues with like the DOJ and stuff like that. But generally, when looking at all of this, it just confirms what we all know already, that the SEC is a really illegitimate organization at this point. It does not want to regulate crypto in a proper way. It wants to just exert its power And it's not just crypto, to be honest. The SEC is doing this with other things as well. But this is the consequence of unchecked unelected bureaucrat power, where essentially because Gary Gensler is a Democrat, because he was installed by Democrats, and because the Democrats currently control the Senate and the presidency, they have no real motivation to stop him. A lot of the most powerful ones, because to stop him from doing this would be to admit that he's doing something that the Democrats don't agree with, even though he's a Democrat, and would be to admit that the Democrats appointed someone who wasn't doing their job properly. And of course, all the politics comes into that. And the rest is history from there. So yeah, anyway, I'll link this video for you to check out in the YouTube description below. But you can also check out Kevin Owocki's tweet, which I'll also link there, which summarizes basically his experience at this Stand With Crypto Day that Coinbase held in Washington, D.C. All right, so Holesky, the Holesky testnet is launching today in like 15 minutes, I think. If I refresh the Bigger Chain website here, I can actually see the timer. Yeah, no, it's less than 10 minutes now. So I don't know if this will be launched by the time I finish this episode, but yeah, hopefully the launch goes smoothly. Geth actually had a release out that works with the Holesky testnet today. Maybe I actually will be able to show you guys this launch and see this before I finish today's episode. But that's there for you to go check out. Yeah, and that's launching today. And then once that launches, obviously it's done. And hopefully it launches this time. Obviously last time we failed to launch here. But that's that one there. But I'm actually going to leave that because I might come back to that towards the end of the episode and see if it's actually launched. So moving on from that, I actually forgot to share this with you guys, but ETHStaker shared this on Twitter. There is an excellent website that you can go check out that actually has everything you need to know about Ethereum's upcoming Dencun upgrade. And this is at ethereumcatherders.com/Dencun. I will link this in the YouTube description below. But this is honestly a magnificent website. If you look at the page that I'm looking at right now on my screen, you can see all of the EIPs that are considered for inclusion and a summary of each of these EIPs with links to the actual proposal and the EIP discussion. So there's quite a few of them here, which you can see. Everyone's favorite 4844, of course, and the controversial 7514. Well, controversial by my standards, but not really that controversial, along with the other EIP. So you can go check that one out. And then if you scroll down further, you can actually see the current updates. So when the devnet's launched, the guides, links to the guides here, links to all these resources and videos. This is just spectacular, guys. I mean, I can't recommend going and checking this out enough in order to see all of the network upgrades here. But not only does this website have the summary of the Dencun upgrade, if you click in the network upgrade section here, and you can actually see all the previous upgrades. So you can see Chapella. If we go to read more and I open that in a new tab here, you can see the mainnet announcement here linked here. And if you click through to it as well, I believe you can actually see some more details about it. Yeah, if you click through down here, you can see some more details about it. And they go pretty far back. I mean, you can see here how far back they go. It's like we're getting into like Istanbul territory, which is 2019. I think they may even go back to like Genesis. Yeah, they actually do. They go back to Frontier, which was Genesis. That's crazy. And you can actually go here and see the first blog post about Ethereum's mainnet release, which is published on July 22nd, 2015. And of course, Ethereum went live on July 30th, 2015. And you can actually see that there and see the first blog post. That's cool. So if you want to take a trip down Ethereum memory lane, you can do so on this website. But you can also click through to the Dencun upgrade page to check out the upcoming Dencun upgrade and everything that entails. So I'll link that in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so censorship on the Ethereum network and censorship resistance of the Ethereum network in general has been a very hot topic over the last over a year now, since the OFAC sanctions, and especially recently. And one person at the forefront of that is Mike Nutter, who I've mentioned a bunch of times on the Refuel before. He's just been powering out pushing out a bunch of different ETH research posts at a very regular cadence here, all about censorship resistance and how he believes it is not futile and how he believes we can actually improve the network without having to upgrade the network. So without a network upgrade. So this latest ETH research post is titled "Resistance is not futile: Censorship resistance in MEV boost." So obviously doing this extra protocol and not requiring a hard fork of Ethereum layer 1. You can go check out the actual research post yourself for details on this. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But from a high level, I did want to just obviously highlight the fact that this research is critically important for Ethereum's future. Getting censorship resistance, I guess, to the point where you basically have, I mean, as I said yesterday or the day before, you're not going to completely eliminate censorship on the Ethereum network. because it's basically impossible to do that. Because as I've mentioned before, and I haven't mentioned this recently, I think I mentioned it a few months ago, there are two forms of censorship on the Ethereum network. There's like out of protocol censorship, or I guess like inclusion censorship, where essentially censorship happens at the transaction inclusion level. And then there is censorship at the attestation level. Now, the attestation level censorship is really easy to defend against. We have slashing for that. And in the worst case scenario, we have like a social consensus fork that could happen, social slashing that could happen because of that. So that's really easy to defend against. But what's incredibly difficult to defend against is that inclusion censorship, because as I mentioned before, the inclusion censorship happens at many different points of the transaction lifecycle, whether it be at the builder level, at the relay level, or at the validator level. It happens at each one of those. And I showed yesterday about how the builder level is incredibly concentrated. There's only 5 top builders, and most of them are censoring right now. The relayers are also pretty concentrated. I think there's 8 left after Block Native shuts down. They're censoring at almost 40% is censoring. And the validator level is looking much better. I think only like 7% are actually full-blown censoring there at the inclusion level. So getting it to the point where it's like, it's at that validator level of like 7% would be an absolutely monumental win for Ethereum. But getting it even lower than that and making it so that censorship at the inclusion level is both costly, doesn't make sense, and it isn't even able to be done maybe eventually, where we do like encrypted mempools and stuff like that. That's the holy grail. And all of this research that Mike Nutter and others are putting out around this will get us there. So if you want to read the latest research on this from Mike, I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, so apparently Rated.network, well, not apparently, this is true, Rated.network has raised a monster fundraising round for $12.89 million to expand to other blockchains other than Ethereum, such as Polygon and Solana here. So this is a pretty big raise, guys. You guys know I use the Rated.network website quite frequently, but I mean, I don't pay for it. It's all free, right? All the stuff that I show you guys is free. I'm not paying any kind of subscription fee or anything like that for it. And that's why, when I saw this raise, I was just like, holy shit, that's a crazy raise, especially in the market that we're in right now, for something that has no real obvious way to accrue value. Like, and I now think to myself, is there going to be a token involved in this? What's that going to look like? Where are the monetization vectors? It's not that Rated.network does not exactly exist as like a unique product. There is competition. It's an amazing product, don't get me wrong, but there is competition there from sites like Beacon Chain and Etherscan and others like that. So I saw this raise. I'm like, that's $100+ million valuation. Pretty crazy. In saying that, maybe there's something I'm missing here. Maybe they do have monetization vectors that they were able to convince investors would be very juicy down the line. I don't know. Maybe they do. But anyway, congrats to them for doing the raise. Obviously, it was led by Archetype here with a bunch of, with participation from a bunch of other investors, as you can see listed here, and this brings their total funding to over $15 million. You know what? I'm actually glad they got funded, because they produced such an awesome tool that even if it really never results in direct monetization or anything like that, the fact that they still get to build out this tool and offer us such awesome kind of resources to reference and to use is good enough for me, to be honest. But anyway, congrats to them on the raise. Just wanted to cover that for you guys, because you guys know I love the Rated.network website. You should go check it out, and you can check out details about this raise. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so I think I've talked about this before, but Diva is a new staking protocol on Ethereum. It is not live yet, but currently they're doing a vampire attack on Lido of sorts. So essentially, you can go to diva.enzyme.finance. I'll link that in the YouTube description. You can deposit ETH or STETH and sit back and relax. Now, as I said, they're not live yet, so this ETH is not being staked, and the STETH obviously is accruing value from the Lido staking ecosystem. But why would you deposit here? Well, as I said, it's a vampire attack. Diva has a token. It's called Diva, right? And there was an airdrop for this token a little while ago, and I mentioned that on the refuel as well. But essentially, you are farming an allocation of these Diva tokens. And this is how a vampire attack works, where essentially the protocol is offering token incentives in order to entice you to deposit your funds into that protocol. Now, I should say that obviously Diva is very new. There could be potential for bugs and stuff like that. So make sure you do your due diligence there. Make sure you don't put, all of your kind of like funds in there or anything like that. But the real kicker here is that if you do put STETH into this, Lido staked ETH into this, at launch, it's automatically going to be converted into Diva staked ETH. So you're still going to have your staked ETH, but it's just going to be the Diva staked ETH token now instead of ST ETH. So that is the real vampire attack, not just the token rewards, but the fact that the ST ETH is getting converted into Diva staked ETH, which obviously takes away from Lido's market share. And this is exactly what I've wanted to see for quite a while now play out with these staking service providers. Obviously, Diva is very new, so their market share right now is 0 because they're not even live with validators or anything like that. But if they can get enough ETH in and they can kind of start this flywheel of people farming these Diva tokens and buying Diva ETH and converting their ST ETH into Diva ETH, then we can chip away, as I've said before, chip away at Lido's market dominance with just another protocol, because there are so many protocols right now, so many staking protocols coming out, so many staking projects, staking companies, blah, 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 that aren't using Lido, and all of these are chipping away at Lido. And the more that we have, the bigger the chipping away gets, right? And eventually Lido's armor falls off, and hopefully we can actually get Lido's dominance down to a reasonable level, right? And the reasonable level obviously is 22%, as I think is the community agreed upon thing. That's going to take a while. So I think if we can stop Lido from growing, that would be a huge win. I think we already have really considerably slowed Lido's growth, but if we can stop Lido from growing altogether, that would be a huge win in of itself, right? And then we can work on obviously making sure that its dominance comes down over time. But Diva is one of those projects doing that, so you should definitely go check this out. We'll link it in the YouTube description below. But also, as I said, keep in mind, it is a new project. There are risks involved. And if you deposit ETH, it's not doing anything right now because it's still in pre-launch. It's not being staked or anything right now. So just keep that in mind too. But yeah, anyway, go check it out. We'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, last up here is just an interesting tweet from Aztec. So apparently a Nintendo emulator is being built using Noir on Aztec. So Dapicon by Tonk will allow you to play your favorite Nintendo games and prove gameplay outcomes on chain. So you can prove that you beat Zelda without revealing how. This is really cool, guys, and this is something that only Layer 2s offer, especially Layer 2s that are focused on privacy. You can go check out the whole thread for yourself. We'll link it in the YouTube description below, but I just wanted to highlight this as a use case that we haven't really seen before, and we haven't seen it in a kind of like way that exists on a layer 2 and in a privacy preserving way as well, in an encrypted way. And the fact that something like this is possible using this technology blows my mind, because yes, okay, Nintendo emulators are nothing new. Everyone can download them very easily. There are a million different emulator devices. I mean, I have one right here next to me. This one here, the Retro Pocket 3. I've been playing Pokemon Colosseum, a GameCube game, on it recently, and I have plenty of these little emulator things because I love them. But the point is not to create another emulator. The point is to create an emulator on a layer 2 network that can do things that you can't do with these other emulators, right? Such as prove that you beat Zelda without revealing how, or any number of other things that could be done using zero knowledge technology. So you can go check out this tweet thread. I'll link this in the YouTube description below, but yeah, go check that out. But anyway, I want to quickly check on if Holesky launched while I've still got the refuel recording here. It may not have launched yet, but we'll see. No, apparently there's 2 minutes left to launch here. Yeah, there's not going to launch while I'm recording this episode. I'm out of time here. But anyway, hopefully the launch goes well. You'll know by the time you watch this episode anyway. But on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.